All right, everyone. In this video, we're going to look at homework problem 3.3 in chapter 3 here. And in this problem, I have snipped out from our homework, class packet here, the detail, just so we have that kind of available, easy to review together on screen. But this is going to be very similar to 3.1, I believe, and we're going to do some adjusting entry type of transactions. Okay, so in this problem, we are only going to record the adjusting entries in the general journal. So we're not going to have to worry about recording the original transactions like we did in problem 3.1, just the adjusting entries. And these are all going to be as of December. So I'm just assuming 2021, and we'll put in December 31st for each one of these. So I'm going to put it in the top spot here because I think the formatting for this works better like that. Okay, so let's just do our calculations first down here, and that'll help us finish out the journal entries quicker if we have all the available information. So let's say for the first one we had equipment, and it was $6,500, and the life in years is 10 years, and then the life in months, alternatively, is 10 times 12. Yeah, 10 times 12. So I'll do this with the currency just so we can differentiate between dollars and months or whatever else that's not dollars. Okay, and then a salvage value of $500. I'm going to do my format painter. I missed it. Oh my gosh, it's the wrong cell. $500. Okay, so I think that's everything we need. And so let's calculate annual depreciation expense, and then we can also calculate monthly depreciation expense. And yeah, so remember our formula is the cost minus the salvage value divided by the life, and for the annual or years, we could just do the 10 years. And then if we want to just go up here, copy this formula, paste that same formula in, again, that's dividing by H15 cell or the life in years. Let's move that down here to the life in months, and that'll give us $50 of depreciation expense per month. Okay, awesome. I think that's all we really need there. And let's do our next analysis, calculation here. So our bank loan is $20,000. I'm going to use my format painter tool again to differentiate, percents and months and dollars, etc. And it's an 8-month note, so the interest rate is 6%, or 0.06 if you want to do a decimal. Interest and principal, I'll do at maturity. It's an 8-month note, so the term, term is, I'm just going to put this in. It probably doesn't really come into play for us, I don't think, but we're going to put it in anyway, just if we might need that. Okay, and then let's calculate annual interest expense and monthly interest expense. So the annual is just real simple. Take our outstanding principal times the interest rate. And if we want to break that down into months, we can just take that annual amount and divide it by 12. So it'd be $100 a month. Okay, so that's great. Okay, then let's look at our next one. Let's say prepaid rent was, what do we got, $12,000. Format paint. Number of months that represents is 4, and so monthly rent expense then is the amount in dollars divided by the number of months, so $3,000 per month, and it's October to January. Okay. And what else? So supplies purchased equals $4,200. So I'm just going down the line of all these. Put that in dollars. Okay. And then supplies purchased originally, and then ending supplies. I'm going to put this as a minus. There's 500 left over. And then if we take the original minus what's left over, we end up with $3,700. And so that was what this is the supplies used up. Right? So if we have this left over, we started with this, the difference between those, what's gone is the supplies used up there of $3,700. Okay, and finally, we received, so let's say deposit, let's call it customer deposit of $20,000. Let's do our format painter again. Okay, and then I'm just going to do number of months. That equals 5 months of service. And then that means our monthly revenue is, and I'm going to call this customer prepayment, just to differentiate, because sometimes deposits are just something that you hold on to and give back, like when you rent somewhere, you might have to put a deposit, but really a prepayment is going to go, you expect it to be fully used up over time, basically. So but $20,000 for 5 months, so per month we're making $4,000. So they gave us the $20,000 up front, but we're earning that over 5 months, basically. Okay. Cool. Okay, I think we have all the info we need now to solve this problem. And let's go ahead and take a look here and say, so our first journal entry is depreciation expense. So let's put in depreciation expense, and accumulated depreciation is going to be our credit. And let's say equipment specifically. Remember, we want to identify what type of accumulated depreciation we're looking at. And we're talking about 12/31. No adjusting entries have been recorded since these transactions happened. So we have got, I'm just going to do this because it's kind of helpful sometimes to visualize January, February. So we got, let's look at our 12 months here. Okay, so there's our 12. Oh, no, one more. There's our 12 months in a year. And let's say for depreciation, we're going to need to record, because we bought it in April. I'm just going to make a little chart for us kind of to help us think about this. And I'm just going to say dep expense. Okay, so starting in April, because we bought it on April 1st, so we had the whole machinery for the equipment for 9 months. So we're going to want to take 9 months times the monthly depreciation amount of $50, and that gets us $450. Okay. And let's see, what's our next one? Okay, so then we had our, we borrowed the $20,000 on 8/1. So 8/1 is August 1st. So for this one, let's call this interest expense. I'm just going to delete these out and start with August. So we have August, September, and you can drag this down. It fills in the formula. We had 5 months of interest expense because we started in August with that one. So we took it out on August 1st. So then we're going to say interest expense and interest payable because we owe this interest. We haven't paid it yet. But we're going to say the monthly interest expense we have down here of $100 times 5 months that the debt was, outstanding essentially. Okay. Okay. What's our next one? Paid $1,200 for 4 months rent in advance, and we paid that on 9/30, and it's from October to January is the dates that apply, and so we are 1, 2, 3. So we had October, November, December. So January of the next 2022 is the only month that should be left in our rent. So then let's copy this entry. And I'm just not doing the explanations right now. So I'm not going to hold you accountable for doing them on this problem either. Okay, let's say this is this is an interest expense. This is rent expense. So let's change that to rent. And then this will be a reduction in our prepaid rent, not a payable. We already paid it up front, but we are reducing the amount that we had as a prepaid rent asset. Okay, and it was 3 months, and the monthly rent here is $3,000 times 3 months that we have been in the office location or whatever. And so that will reduce our prepaid rent by $9,000 and leave $3,000, which will reflect 1 month's left of just for January. And again, keep in mind that this is with the assumption no adjusting entries have been made. Usually we're doing adjusting entries every month, and so you wouldn't have this whole 3 months being recorded once or 5 months, so on and so forth. Usually you're recording adjusting entries every month, so that's more common. But this problem, we like to do it this way in class just to make you think through how this is all working essentially. So, okay, so we purchased these supplies. So supplies expense, we don't really need to do a time component here. We already know what the ending balance is. Supplies will be reducing. The asset will go down by $3,700, and we recognize $3,700 in expense. That one, again, we don't need a time component to. It's just what's left over at the end of the year. And then the final one, I think here, let me make sure that's final. Yeah, is unearned revenue. And so our monthly revenue, it's 5 months. So let's do, this one does have a time component, and let's just call it UR for unearned revenue. And the 20,000, so what we're going to be doing is reducing unearned revenue. So that's going to be a debit to reduce our liability, and service revenue just to reflect the actual revenue we're earning. Let's get rid of those. And then let's figure out what that total is. So we have monthly revenue of $4,000, which begins in November, and we're at the end of December now. So it's 2 months to November and December of revenue has been earned of this original 20,000, and we have 3 months left of January, February, March, so through March. So we know our monthly amount here, 4,000. Multiply that by how many months have gone by, and we've recorded 2/5 of the full amount, or $8,000 of the 20,000 total. So that gets us to the total of what's this kid's doing? Sorry, I have kids ringing my doorbell and running away. Okay. Okay, so that gets us to the ending point, and I think that's all of the transactions that we have in place there. So nothing left really to do on this problem. I mean, like we said, this compared to the first problem that we did 3.1, that one had all of the original entries recorded. And so this one, again, to contrast that, just asked us to do the adjusting entries later in cycle here, as opposed to having to record the original entries to record the purchases, et cetera, et cetera. We're just doing the adjusting entries. So that's why there's less there. But hopefully this was helpful to better understand the adjustments, think about the time component, understand what we're doing from an analysis and calculation perspective. And I will see you in the next